8 minutes to 8.
The Scottish Government needs to decide today whether to go ahead with a planned return scheme for cans and plastic bottles without including glass. That's after the UK Government used its powers to say glass could not be included because some producers would then stop supplying Scotland and reduce the choice available to consumers. The Scottish Government may now feel the scheme is unviable without glass. The idea at the heart of it is all about circularity, reducing waste and improving the current rates of recycling. Hospitality venues in Scotland have been worried, however, about how the scheme will impact them. I was hearing about that in Edinburgh recently. And we can talk to David Harris, Chief Executive of Circularity Scotland, which is the industry body responsible for the administration of the scheme. Good morning, Mr. Harris.
Good morning.
Is it viable without glass?
Yeah, absolutely. We've obviously had to respond to this very quickly. It's only just over a week since we found that glass was being taken out of the scheme. But we can certainly see that we are able to mitigate a great many of the costs that have already been incurred to process glass. We're at a very advanced state of readiness. Much of the infrastructure has already been installed to handle glass. But with the steps we've identified that we can take, we can largely mitigate the cost impact for the producers who remain impacted by the scheme. So, yes, our view is it very much remains a viable scheme.
But not fully mitigated. It will be a bit more expensive.
We're looking at a small cost increase at the moment to the producers who remain. However, that's after 4 days to process the impact of this, and we are currently working on reviewing everything to identify ways to take that cost further out.
And so it sounds as if you would rather that the Scottish Government decide to go ahead with it now. I mean, it's already been twice delayed, but to go ahead with it rather than try and battle with the UK Government over glass. Or rather than scrap it altogether, which is possible.
Well, we're at a stage now where hundreds of millions of pounds have been invested by ourselves, our business partners, the retailers and the producers in getting ready for this scheme to go live. We were created by producers to meet their obligations. We're not government, we're the body of the producers. Jobs have been created, many hundreds more jobs will be created over the coming months. And Scotland without glass will remain one of the most ambitious deposit return scheme startups attempted so far. There's 50 schemes running very successfully in the world. Many of those run without glass. So we absolutely see the right decision here being protect that investment, protect the jobs and proceed with the scheme as planned.
Let me bring in Edward Mountain, Conservative MSP and Chair of the Net Zero Energy and Transport Committee in the Scottish Parliament. Do you want the scheme to go ahead, or are you at the point where you want to see it scrapped?
No, I'd absolutely like to see the scheme go ahead. I mean, it's quite clear the UK government is promoting Scotland's opportunity to recycle cans and plastic containers. We've heard from Circularity Scotland they're ready to do that in March when it will come live. So let's get on with it and let's stop having a constitutional argument about why it shouldn't or should go ahead.
But there is a lot of glass wasted currently in Scotland, isn't there? I mean, there don't seem to be very many curbside collections. There's only about 63% of glass bottles that go into recycling currently.
A lot of glass is recycled. I mean, you've only got to drive around in Scotland to see the bins at the end of people's roads where the glass is collected. Of course, we can do better, and we should always strive to do better, but councils are collecting glass and they're collecting cans and they are using the funds that they get from that to fund their recycling systems.
But 63% isn't that high, is it? How do you suggest that you can boost glass recycling rates without this?
Well, glass recycling rates across the United Kingdom need to get better, and that's why we need a United Kingdom system for glass so that we don't limit the opportunities for people to purchase drinks in glass bottles, which is what the scheme would do at the moment if it wasn't UK-wide.
David Harris, if glass had been included, what would you have done with it?
We were planning the glass would have stayed in Scotland. We were advanced stages of discussions with a reprocessor in Scotland to see the glass remelted and turned back into bottles with a target initially of 90% rising to 95% of the glass we collected finding its way back into bottles.
Right, but if it ends up being remelted rather than, for example, go back and be washed out, for example, and refilled again, then one wonders why you couldn't simply improve recycling rates, collect it more and deal with it in that way, rather than having the kind of burden that hospitality was telling me about, where they've got to store it completely perfectly before it's collected by your organisation?
Well, obviously, if glass comes out, one of the challenges of the scheme, which is the hospitality sector, is one that will be difficult to service. That would be one consequence of glass coming out, that challenge would set aside. But if we actually look, deposit return across the world, 50 schemes run, vast many of them operate with glass in. They demonstrably improve recycling rates. You're also capturing the material very much earlier in the system. Less cross-contamination has been allowed to take place. So it is a very, very effective way to capture glass for recycling. We don't have a returnable system in the UK. That's a very different proposition. Countries like Germany are advanced with returnables. But in the UK, all of our systems are based around recycling, and deposit return is a way to improve the effectiveness of that. But,
David Harris, Sir Edward Mountain, thank you both very much.
Which